Yeah, I hear you great.
Okay. Hey guys, Angry MGTOW here, and I have friended on today. He is a guest, and you can definitely check out his channel by visiting the link to his channel in the description of this video. And today we're going to be discussing why women have no future in. Oh gosh. On today he is a guest, and you can definitely check out his. Okay.
That wasn't my fault.
I don't know if it was your fault or mine. One of us. I had it going in the background. So yeah. Friended has a channel on YouTube. You can check out his channel by clicking on the link in the description. And we're going to be discussing the Sexodus. We're going to be discussing why women have no future in the Sexodus. So the Sexodus, for those of you that don't know, it's based around an article that Milo Yiannopoulos, the famous alt-right editor for Breitbart, wrote a couple of years ago that explained why men are not marrying and instead choosing to stay, remain living at home, not having children, play video games, and not progressing further in life. He called it the Sexodus, disengaging from women and having nothing to do with them. And in many ways, that's really MGTOW. Now, we're going to be discussing this concept. Friended has a little bit of a vast interest in psychology. So we're going to look at some of the reasons why women may be disengaging, why I'll talk about the reasons why I think women have no future in the Sexodus. Now, Friended, are you single? Are you married?
I'm married, happily married. So, sorry, guys.
Married. I did not know beforehand that he was married because we don't like those type of people around here. But
really, oh, I'm sorry. I'm unhappily married. How's that? I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. So. But I'm open-minded. I'm totally open-minded. I'm sympathetic to the cause. I've listened to quite a few of your videos, and I'm curious about what's going on. I think something is going on. I think you guys are onto something, so I'm interested.
Okay. Well, so from your perspective as a married man, I mean, do you put up with shit in your daily life, being married to your wife?
Not really. I mean, we don't have a lot of shit, so there's really not a lot of shit to put up with. So.
Okay,
we have a good relationship, which I mean I've seen a lot of people that don't have good relationships, so I can empathize. I understand. Like a lot of relationships are crap. So
what age range are you guys in? What age range are you guys in?
Me, I'm ancient. I'm 47, so I'm almost 50.
How old is your wife?
My wife is 40.
Okay, so you guys are around the same age.
We've been married for 10 years too, so we're doing okay.
10 years, jeez.
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, you know what? You're one of the Xers. You're an Xer.
What does that mean?
Generation X.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Go long live Generation X.
Yeah. See, you're more than 10 years old. I'm 33, going on 34. My generation of women, we call them cunts.
I got blessed with the genes. I got to be honest with you. I look like I'm in my 30s. Nobody ever believes. It's kind of fun to spring it on them. Yeah, I'm 47, and they're like, "Oh my God, are you kidding me?" So I did get lucky in the genes department.
That picture we're seeing, that's not actually you, like a vivid.
No. It's an avatar that I just came up with. I just knew like YouTube is a young person's game, so I didn't want to put my face out there.
Okay, so. We look at this generation of women, and my generation of women are downright horrible. We call them the special snowflakes, and it's no wonder that a lot of men are choosing not to have relationships, not to have children, and are instead focusing on themselves, enjoying video games, and going their own way. And one of the most prominent aspects of MGTOW is literally that, going your own way, focusing on your own happiness, not getting married, not having children. By the way, do you have children?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
And I take it you guys don't plan on having children.
Not really. No, we're fine.
Okay. And, I think that, when children come into the equation, things become even more difficult for a couple. It can become quite problematic. Couples start to spend less time together. And then there's also the financial aspect of things, that a woman is always looking for her exit, and she uses the kids as a way to extract wealth and resources from men. I mean, you said that you're sympathetic to the MGTOW cause now, and you do have a background in psychology. What do you think are the major components why modern day women are the way they are?
Man, I was going to ask you that. I feel, yes, this you're talking about the Sexodus, where men are not choosing to get married. Men and women are both not choosing to get married. I kind of see as kind of the death of monogamy, and I wonder often if feminism has influenced this kind of death of monogamy. First of all, a monogamy. Do you feel like monogamy is good for men?
No, I think monogamy is terrible for men. I think
Really?
Yeah, because I think monogamy is just a system that traps men into a unfair boundary where men end up giving more and women end up taking more. Monogamy was really created for the sustainability of women, and but women are hypergamous by nature. I mean, if you look at history, men who had wealth typically slept with multiple wives, and monogamy creates a system of scarcity. In other words, a man has to be with one woman. So, I mean, with that type of scarce mindset, in other words, every man can only be with one woman. So he has to find the right woman. He has to find a woman. But removing the concept of scarcity, if a man is no longer confined by society to limiting himself to one woman in the end, then the very notion of scarcity disappears from the mental mindset of a man, and he can expand his boundaries, realizing that there's billions of women on the planet, and he can potentially have a sexual relationship with any of them over the course of his entire life.
See, I see it completely opposite to that. I actually see monogamy being very good for men and very bad for women. I think in we say that is many women with one. It's polygamy, right? The same thing. Basically, lots of girls and one guy, right?
No, hypergamy is when women are getting into relationships with multiple men.
Okay, I gotcha. Well, in a monogamous culture, most men will have the ability to have a family and reproduce. In a non-monogamous culture, a polygamous culture, the alpha males are going to dominate most of the females, and you can't really have a stable society where 20% of the males are dominating 100% of the women. So I kind of feel like perhaps this whole MGTOW thing is a result of there being the downfall of monogamy. So these women are not getting married to one man, like you've said. They're sleeping around. They're constantly being monopolized by maybe 20% of the males, and 80% of the males are doomed to not reproduce, to not have a relationship with a woman.
There are some people who agree with monogamy. I'm looking at the comments. Some people say monogamy raises offspring IQ. However, I don't know if I agree with that, because if you look at the structure of monogamy, with monogamy, you have the weakest of men that are also allowed to pass on their genes. That's a serious problem. Something that people don't.
I understand that, but
let me finish.
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Something that people don't consider is that when it comes to hypergamy, when it comes to men having multiple wives, men who can support multiple wives, these are also intelligent men. They are not only physically strong men, but they are often very intelligent men who are able to gather resources, men who are capable. Many of the most brilliant minds in history were also not effeminate men. They were also warrior men who are willing to go out on their own, to journey, to discover. And it's something that, you realize that with monogamy, you have a group of beta males that are also being allowed to pass on their genes. And by being allowed to pass on their genes to the next generation, that's not a good thing.
I don't know that I agree with that, because you don't necessarily know that they're not passing on traits that are going to be useful in the future. I mean, in our distant past, yes, the alpha males were the ones that could run fastest, hunt, made the most kills. But then all of a sudden, this whole intelligence thing came into being. I mean, who's to say, you know, some trait that is not necessarily something that's useful today won't be useful tomorrow.
Okay, so here's one of the problems that people seem to think. People think that intelligence is a beta male characteristic because alpha males are constantly roaming the jungles and fighting cheetahs and all this other nonsensical things. What I was trying to allude to earlier is that many alpha males were the ones who did things such as, Christopher Columbus, alpha male type. He was a brilliant guy. He had to learn navigation. He had to learn languages. He had to do multiple things. Philosophers, these people that travel, these people that created, these people were not beta males. The very construction of the very action of creation is often prompted by alpha males looking to create, using creation as a form of survival. Survival is an alpha male characteristic. Beta males typically don't possess those characteristics. Beta males would historically be the guys that would be kept as eunuchs or servants or slaves and not allowed to reproduce because they don't really add anything to society. You can't really point to a lot of beta males that have made major contributions in society today.
Yeah, so I'm under the impression, though, in today's modern society, that what you would call beta males support the alpha males. That alpha males are able to achieve the great heights that they're able to achieve because society helps them along. And if society collapses, do you really have those abilities to reach those same heights?
First off, I don't believe society will collapse. I believe people will collapse. And if society collapses, obviously we would not be able to reach those heights more than likely, because society was originally designed to help people to gain more opportunities. However, again, it was not simply designed for the individual to live off society. It was designed to help people in general.
Yeah. So do you think things are going to turn around? What do you I've heard some of your thoughts on the future, and you see like sexual dimorphism going to the point where we're almost different species, right? Men and women.
It's hard to see. It's hard to really fathom where things are going, as men and women are really getting on pretty poorly these days. However, I do point where potentially men and women may no longer communicate with each other. We may live in a gender segregated society where men and women are completely divided. In other words, men on one side, women on another side, or even if we're still together, we are not engaged in sexual reproductive acts or even interpersonal relationships.
Right. I see a lot of the death of monogamy as a result of the death of a lot of our institutions that fostered monogamy. So I think you're kind of against feminism, right? Am I wrong in that?
I'm not a major supporter of feminism, although there was a point in time where I did feel that, feminism is pushing more men away from women. So, hey, it's still doing something positive, because the more men that get away from women, the sooner men will more men will go their own way. But overall, the very concept and notion of feminism, I've never supported it. I think that when I was supporting the concept of men not having anything to do with women, I was that was during my more angry phase, which is something that we call the red pill rage in MGTOW. But I am not a major supporter of feminism. I think feminism is cancer. I think feminism has destroyed the relationship between men and women, although I question if the relationship was ever a good one in the first place. And I think that feminism represents very much the potential death of society.
Yeah. I'm still feeling out the whole feminism thing. I'm not sure that I completely understand it from the feminist perspective. I do think that there's an argument to be made that feminism undermines certain institutions in society that have fostered monogamy, and I'm a firm believer that monogamy has been good for men and good for society, in that Like, there's nothing that causes more conflict in society than a bunch of, you know, sexless, childless men running around with any political power. And I see a lot of the political dissent going on now as potentially a result of that. So, and I don't see a lot of people making that connection. So
think about this in a hypergamous system. Hypergamy and polygamy are not necessarily related. Think about this in a truly hypergamous society where women just roam around having sex with different men. If these
right.
if women just go around having sex with different men, having children with different men, and failing to set up roots and develop a long-term relationship with a man who provides resources for her and her children, then in the end, it becomes extreme. As a woman gets older, it becomes more and more difficult for her to survive. And without having a man to provide for her, she will find herself, having a difficult time providing for herself or surviving in society. This is the reason why monogamy was really good for women, because it provided them with a man who would stick around, provide and share his resources with her and the children. Basically, she would provide the man with children, and he would share his resources with the woman who would also take care of his children. That is how monogamy benefited women. Women did not have to go out. They did not have to labor. All they had to do was open their legs, close their mouth, and they could live scotch-free. But under in a hypergamous society where women are going out having sex with multiple partners and destroying traditionalism, which I honestly don't think really benefited men in the first place, because we've always had to give more than we receive, way more. Women are essentially beginning to, they're going out, they're having sex with multiple partners, they're contracting STDs, they are, their bodies are wearing out, they're having children out of wedlock, they're hitting the wall, and then when shit hits the fan, they find themselves unable to survive, provide for their children, and then they want a monogamous relationship with a man who will provide his resources for children that are not even his. Or when they hit the wall, and even if they don't have children, they hit the wall, and life is now hard. They are not as equipped as men, because women don't like to work for their entire lives. They also don't want to work as many hours as men. They enjoy free time, and that's a statistical fact. So they find themselves getting older, wanting to work less, wanting to spend more time at home doing the things they enjoy, watching TV or playing with their dildos. It doesn't really matter. And then they want a man to help them in that situation, a man to, provide for them and help them. I mean, if you don't mind me asking, is your wife a stay-at-home wife, or does she work?
I want to, before we get to me, I want to touch on a couple of things you said. I think women, what you're saying here is women are spending their sexual capital inefficiently, right? Is that basically
Correct.
what you're saying? They're
very, very correct.
They're sleeping around a lot, and when they sleep around, men value fidelity for a very practical reason. They want to raise kids that they know are their own, right? Men have always evolutionarily had to deal with paternity uncertainty. They still do today. If you turn on the TV in the afternoon, you can see a ton of shows, right? You are the father. You are not the father, right? Men don't want to raise kids that are not their own. So if women spend their sexual capital, belittle their, if they don't understand how men value fidelity, or think that men don't value fidelity, and men can even say, yeah, I don't value fidelity, but subconsciously they do value fidelity for this very practical reason, then you're setting up a society where you've got a bunch of females who are marriageable and could embark on a family, but in the eyes of all the men, they've already spent all of their sexual capital. They don't want to have a part of those women. Then you have a society that's, you're really in danger of how is this society going to propagate itself?
You make a lot of good points. You also have to consider that, statistically they found that women who've had multiple sexual partners, the more sexual partners a woman has, the less fulfilled and happy she is. And
I totally agree. Yeah, totally. You're making a great point.
So, women are wasting their sexual capital. Also, look at a woman, women today, they are you know, they're getting older, they're having children later in life. Who wants to have a child with a 40-year-old woman? Anyone goes to a doctor, and a doctor said, you know, forget about 40, even in her mid 30s, things start to get a bit risky. The older a woman gets, the more dangerous and more unlikely it is that she should have children. And when she gets to her late 30s, the very idea, the very notion of having children pretty much goes out the window. And there's a number of biological reasons why older women shouldn't have children, as well as it can be women who have children later in life. Those children tend to be more sickly. They tend to be more at risk of developing mental disorders. You know, there's a kid on the channel who talks here, and RT Gaming 1016, and his mother had him when she was like in her very, very late 30s, I think, or either no, I'm incorrect. She actually had him in her 40s, I think, around 40. She had him around 40, and he has Asperger's, and I've seen, and he's not the only example. There's also another kid. His mother had him later in life, and he has he has like autism as well. You see patterns like that. My mother had my youngest brother when she was around 37, 38, somewhere around there. And he was born with a slew of mental issues. You know, it's quite obvious that the older a woman has children, the more likely those children are going to have developmental problems in life, as well as it can also lead to serious haphazards during her pregnancy.
So a lot of these things that you're saying, I totally agree with, and they're just heart-wrenching to hear. A lot of this I feel, and tell me if you think I'm wrong, but a lot of this I feel is institutional breakdowns. And one of my big questions is, you know, how do you fight back against this?
I agree entirely that a lot of this is due to institutional breakdowns. Now, how do you actually fight back against it? It's a good question. However, it's a question that, you know, we've pondered for times, and, you know, do you really fight back against it? Because it's a changing of the times. As you look at when transgenderism is becoming popular as a societies, you realize that culture is beginning to experience a breakdown as well. And there really may be no going back, you know. Because, I mean, look at the society we're living in now, the very nature of the workforce. Women can't go back to the 1950s. They simply can't go back because even if men wanted to, financially, you can't, because we no longer live in a society where you can, it's easy to sustain a household with one person, unless the man makes a shitload of money, then both the man and women are going to have to work.
Well, one of the reasons why I'm interested in MGTOW or any MGTOW, I see as kind of a proto institution. Like, you're forming an institution here. You're forming a group of people with collective ideas, which is what an institution is. You know, and I feel like maybe that's a start. So a step in the right direction, at least.
Well, I mean, and here's the thing with MGTOW, we're essentially not, it's just a philosophy, but there is definitely a community that has formed around MGTOW, and there are different communities that continue to form around MGTOW. So I can totally understand where you're going with that. So, I mean, it is something that has happened, and we're going to see more of it happening over time. And, you know, we just have to basically consider that MGTOW is, you know, it's one of the biggest things that has happened. Just because we have the name MGTOW doesn't mean that the behavior of MGTOW hasn't happened before. I mean, you know, if you look at ancient texts, you can see that in Roman culture, during Rome, when Rome began to fall, there was a large group of men that began deciding not to get married, not to have children, as women became more and more hypergamous and fucking gladiators. So you begin to notice that there's a division among the gender. As societies begin to degenerate, and there's a behavior with women, you know, choosing to become more hypergamous, men pulling back from women in society. And ultimately, there may not be any way of saving modern society. Again, we don't know what's going to happen, but in situations where societies have begun to degrade like this, I don't know if there's any way going forward. Now, I did ask you earlier about your wife, and I think I asked, what did I ask you?
No, we're both working. Yeah, no, we both work.
We both work.
And I understand, and what you're saying is completely true, and there is such an economic component to this that it's tough to say that we're, you know, there always is culture and there's economics, and it's like you can't deny that one influences the other. I mean, we live in a society now where, you know, one person income supporting a family, you know, with multiple kids is just kind of an impossibility. So income inequality, I think, does play into this somewhat, and nobody's really fighting against that either. Oh, you know, hopefully the robots, when they take over, right, there'll be a little left for them.
Maybe laugh, but the robots are coming. We just have
no,
to see.
I know they are.
You know, we just have to see where we are when they get here, or after they get here. So, you know, I think this is a good point to wrap it up. I wanted to keep this short. I mean, is there anything? Do you have any final thoughts on the topic of, you know, women having no future going forward? Honestly, I don't. I think a lot of women are going to find severe hardship as a result of feminism, as more men choose not to have relationships with them and go their own way. What do you think?
I think it's on both sides. I think men have it really hard, and I think women have it really hard as well. And there's a problem kind of with the interfacing between the two. I mean, our futures are tangled up together. The internet, I don't know, is helpful for anyone. Like, it makes everybody seem to hate everyone that much more. So I think there is a war of the sexes going on. I've read, if you guys want to Google sexual conflict theory and David M. Buss, there's a couple books that he's written on this, and there's a couple good lectures online that really take a lot of what's going on in the subconscious mind for a lot of people and just make it conscious. And I think that's super helpful. I think when we can understand the feelings that we're having on a conscious level, they don't have as much power over us.
Okay. All right. Well, definitely, guys, check that out if you're interested. Hope you guys enjoyed this podcast with Friended. Definitely don't forget to check out his channel, which I've linked to in the description of this video. And if you enjoyed the video, please go ahead and hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to MGTOW or death. And cheers.